Hello. We felt that we should get started 30 minutes late as appropriate to the demographic in the room. So, hello and welcome to the very first convening of the new Third World. I've written a silly little speech. No one make fun.
It's not bad. It's your baby. Do it.
It's your baby. Do it. We're here to support you.
All right.
Speak.
Hello and welcome to the first convening. Hi. Of the new Third World. By stepping into the doors, you have consented to being in our New York chapter. I hope we'll all be very, very happy together. I'm Malvika Jolly. Most of you know me, and if you don't, now you do. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming a crew of wonderful and motley women, featuring Sarah Ghazal Ali, Gabrielle Bates, Patricia Humanik, Ginha Jahari, and Itiola Jones, who will be reading To Dazzle and Delight Us in just a moment. I also want to give a big thank you to Oliver Conan, who graciously invited us into this space free of charge and arranged for the live streaming and all kinds of other delights and pleasures free of charge. So a reminder that we're living in a very difficult era to be a venue of arts and culture and pleasure, so tip well, drink much. I'm going to open this up with like a very small history lesson.
Yes.
So this is a new reading series. It's kind of my baby, and it's inspired by the non-alignment movement's Dream for the Third World. So the non-alignment movement was a gathering and alliance of world leaders and nations who came together in the wake of rapid decolonization, liberation struggles, anti-colonial struggles, political revolution that they actually won across most of the world. And all of these leaders, so it's like Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah, Indonesia's Sukarno, it's Egypt's Nasser, it's India's Nehru, it's many people all across the world. Nelson Mandela was president for quite a while. All of these parties, they sort of decided to like look to their left and look to the right. They looked at the United States with the capitalist world order, and they looked at the USSR with state communism, and they decided that they wanted to side with neither. Instead, they sided with one another. And in the mathematics that still underpins our coalition building from the margins to this day, they found that they were, in fact, the majority of the world. So the non-aligned movement made up most of the world, 120 nations. They were extremely iconic. They were leaders of nationalist movements, anti-colonial movements. They were charismatic statesmen coming off of many different forms of indenture, colonialism, extraction, etc. And they all sort of came together and thought about the question of like, what does the word history mean to us? What does the history of the world mean to us? And the question of governance, how should people live? So it was this moment of like profound collective imagination, and they came together and proposed lots of answers of difference, but mainly third world socialism, global solidarities. They really saw themselves in bonds of adjacency, friendship, kinship, and in this we find a great example of what it means to be in relationship with one another across difference. All of us in the diaspora across the ambient of the world. So you really do get this like really beautiful moment where you have radical friendships and interconnectivity, and it shows up in all of these different kind of very saucy ways. You get the Black Panthers going down into Cuba to bring in the sugar harvest. You get Kwame Nkrumah in Delhi, and he's very close friends with Nehru, and to this day there's a road in central Delhi by the seat of the government that is named after Kwame Nkrumah. It's so much, right? It's that when he's deposed by the CIA, he flees to Nasser's Egypt. He brings W.E.B. Du Bois with him and his wife. It's this really radical period of imagining the history and the future of the world and imagining it differently, which I think to us as predominantly like people of color in the US in the kind of like outhouse of identity politics can be very restorative and very healing, at least to me. And there is something to be said, like this movement failed, but in their photographs they're having the time of their lives. It's like a house on fire. No, it's really good. It's, they're having the best time. They're taking these like official state photographs, but they're smoking hookah and they're like drinking tea and they're wearing their anti-colonial outfits from their different nations. It's all Nehru collars, and no one's wearing a tie, and it's just like it looks like a beautiful party. It's people who can't take a bad photo, however they try, and in their state photos they're all like holding hands. There'll be like pictures of like their kids and they're flung on the bed asleep, and it's just like it's a fantasy, right? It's very, very beautiful, and something I like to think about is, you know, if you think about what colonialism is, British colonialism, its flavor is really having a laboratory to test out these really fringe economic theories, these really like radical, terrible, you know, like and like out and on kind of theories, and you know, using most of the world as your laboratory. So what the non-aligned leaders were doing was using their own nations as laboratories for a different kind of project, right? What it means, to test out different theories of what it means to have social welfare, to have civic engagement, to have literacy, to have solidarity, to have friendship, to be really hot together. Ultimately, like, with the fall of the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall, it failed, right? We're living in the aftermath of history. Another reason to tip well, drink much. But, it's clear in the moment, right, that it feels inevitable that capitalism, Western liberal democracy has really won out for the present moment. We shed what we don't need.
Yes.
So it feels inevitable right now, right? That those are the moments, those are the forms of governance, those are the ways we relate to each other under the state, and those are like the structures in which we have to live our lives, right? But as Ursula Le Guin reminds us, capitalism seems inescapable, but so did the divine rights of kings. Right? So the premise of this reading series is kind of picking up where the non-aligned movement left off, to go deeper into new forms of political and poetical conspiracy and fugitivity with our diasporic kindreds, to remember that encloses and encompasses more of us than we would imagine under like the tight confines of how we think of race in America, right? There's a lot of people who are marginal. And to sort of engage in a world of, as Itiola said, friendship across distance. And to remember that is an essentially imaginative and ethical act, which carries enormous transformational potential. Thank you for listening. You're doing so good.
We have potential.
We do. So, I'm almost done. In their histories, there are certain lessons that we can carry with us. First, that our friendship has a short present but a long history. That our communities are not just unified against traumas in this nation. Instead, we are part of each other's past, present, and future together. And in this way, in my heart, I feel that the new third world sees the myth of non-origin and raises you one, pulls at its strings until it begins to unwind, and we see the knot at its core, the one left behind by empire, right? And we see, if you turn to your left and you turn to your right, you will see that your knots are the same. The second is the question of what it means to not only theorize global solidarities, but to embody them, right? I think those are adjacent questions, but different questions. And as the poet I.S. Jones writes, what I understand about home is an ever-shifting landscape. Home is when I'm with my fellow immigrant daughters. Home is a warm plate of food from my favorite cafe. Home is when I get to cook for my friends. Home is the first kiss of a new romance. I'm so sorry to out you. Home.
Surprise.
Home is Bed-Stuy. And that is one crucial answer, right? And there are many answers. So like when Diane de Primo writes, love spelled backwards is revolution, perhaps that is another, right? And I think for those of us who know that the personal is political, that the revolutionary path is also the scenic path, that too is an answer, right? To live in pleasure is to live in revolution. And we shall have our bread and our roses too. But fundamentally, I think it's about what we've all done already, right? It's about showing up to the room, filling the room. It's about showing up to the fight with the knives between our teeth. So we're ready. We're in the lion's den, and we're like snatching out its teeth. We're ready. There's a lion coming. The third lesson is that time is the ultimate colonizing force, which I think is something that's on many of our minds in this room. We're of the cult of Etel Adnan, who has a beautiful show up at the Guggenheim now, and who passed away this morning. So I think a good thing to remember, right, as we look backwards and then we look forwards, is that time is the ultimate colonizing force. But as Jack Spicer tells Lorca, poets are time mechanics, right? We're not embalmers, and that we're here to preserve language, that words must be led across time and not preserved against it, right? So we have a vital role to play. And the fourth lesson is this, that there is a quiet power in being neither one thing nor another, right? That the playful irony to me of the non-alignment movement and their like silly little name is that it is in fact an alignment to be non-aligned, right? It is in fact a way of coming out into the streets and being adjacent to your colleagues and seeing that you are the majority of the world. And I think that's like, there's a quiet lesson in that there is a third path, there is a third space, and it is the space of insurrection, right? It is also the space of the best parties. As Fred Moten would remind us, a rent party is a space of insurrection. It is the space of the undercommons, and it is the space out in the vast fields of unmeaning where we're all running out of the burning building, grabbing up in our arms everything we can see, and then we're running the fuck out. And the lesson in that to me is that, you know, that without being able to see beyond, you can see beyond. You can build there, and you can build on the way to there, which has been really important and vital to me. So thank you all.